Hello, and welcome to the Multiverse. I'm Dan.
And I'm Drea, and we own Multiverse Comics in Culpeper, Virginia. And so, Dan, I'm going to talk to you today about a topic that occurred to me when I was listening to a comic podcast, the name of which escapes me at the moment. Hopefully I'll remember soon, because I want to give them credit. But they were talking about a particular book that came out recently. And when I say recently, I mean at least within our lifetime. That sort of retconned Hal Jordan's origin, becoming the Green Lantern. And unlike his first origin, where he's just kind of there, it actually imbues this particular iteration of the character with all the different character flaws that we had seen him work out over the course of his career as Green Lantern. And so, first of all, before we jump into the topic of the video, let's talk a little bit about what is that book. Do you know what that book is?
I believe it's Secret Origins.
Okay.
One of Jeff Johns, not his first arc, but it's a couple arcs into his run of Green Lantern. Mm-hmm. Like she said, redefined his origin. It put Sinestro as someone who actually trained Hal a little bit.
Okay.
And it gave a little bit of depth to Abin Sur's mission before he died.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which was lost in the original.
Yeah,
he just showed up and had a ring, and there he is.
For the most part, yeah, dead alien. Hal Jordan becomes Green Lantern.
Right.
Very little depth to how he died or whatever.
And that's kind of my point. You know, you have these titans of comics. You have both Marvel and DC and other, lesser known universes where you have an established character, and at the very beginning, they're at their origin of origins. You just have a character, and they're just doing things. It's kind of like Professor X and the X-Men. They're just kind of doing stuff. Professor X is a crazy person who is throwing kids into dangerous situations to make a team that wears yellow spandex. In so many cases, especially. Fair enough. In so many cases, like you had the token character, like you had the girl, and she was the girl, and she's there because she's the girl.
Jean Grey. Yeah.
Jean Grey. Sue Storm. She was almost not quite as bad as Wonder Woman, being basically a glorified secretary, but too often Sue Storm was the damsel, right? And so anyway, and that's kind of my point, is you have these characters that, rather than having these flaws that are inherent to the character that they can work through, these flaws come about as the comics became more sophisticated. And so you have this situation where characters go through multiple character arcs. And I'm putting this in contrast to maybe a novel or like a one-shot or a duology or a trilogy or even a series, where you have a character, especially the main character, who has these character flaws, and then by the end of the story, whether it's the one-shot, the duology, whatever, they've kind of fixed their flaws. Like whatever their flaws were, they've overcome them, and they now are who they are. They've come full circle. That's kind of impossible when you have a long-running character, like you have in the comic books. And so what happens is you have multiple character arcs. You with me so far?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to pause and let you speak to that for a second. The differences between those. Like, what do you know of characters who have had multiple character arcs? Can you give me some examples, I guess is what I'm asking for.
Well, Hal Jordan's actually the perfect example of that, because he's gone through a lot of stuff through his lifetime. Like, he was a door-to-door salesman at one point.
Selling what?
I'm not even sure.
Vacuum. Let's just say vacuums.
Yeah,
that makes the most sense.
Why not? Yeah, let's
selling
go.
vacuums.
He's went on road trips with Ollie. He's been,
Ollie being Green Arrow?
Yeah, Green Arrow. Yeah, they shared a title for a while there.
This is embarrassing. We wore the same thing. Sorry. Go ahead.
Wow.
We're both wearing green.
Yeah, I got you.
I've been watching a lot of Spider-Verse. You'll have to forgive me.
Okay. Anyway, Hal's been through probably the most significant changes throughout his career, actually.
What about Superman? I mean, Superman kind of started out as like this golden boy situation, like he was Superman. But then I feel like later on, and I don't know how recently, because the way it was revealed to me was actually in the 90s show Lois and Clark, where Superman has this painful problem, like the burden he carries is hearing everyone cry to him for help and only able to help some of them. Like, that wasn't in the first issue, correct?
No, it wasn't. But the reason I don't consider Superman as changes, he's had plenty of changes in his life, but the core of what Superman is has, for the most part, been there, despite what Snyder wants to do to him. But for the most part, the core of what Superman is there. I mean, there might not have been writers who focused on, the fact they can't hear, but like I remember relating to that in the comic in the 90s. Superman lost his power after the Final Night series because the sun went out, so he had no powers. And when the sun came back, he didn't get him back for whatever reason.
That's why Batman's always better than Superman. Continue.
All right. Anyways, but there was a scene because he got married to Lois right after this, and they were on their honeymoon, and
shenanigans.
There was a scene where I forget exactly the dialogue, but it was like Clark mentioned how he felt like he was deaf, because he couldn't hear people crying out for him. And so that is something that, has been there, and I wouldn't call that character development, because if a writer would have thought to put that in early days, that would be something Superman would have done.
And knowing that, like, if you read comic 110, I don't know the number here, okay, but you read comic 110, and then you realize that...
Is comic the title of the series?
You done?
I'm trying to find it.
You read his 110th issue, okay? Pedantic. You read the 110th issue of Superman. That is revealed that now that he doesn't have it anymore, he feels deaf because he's always heard the screams. Then if you go back and read issue 1 through 109, that's kind of in your mind. So it's more of like something about him is revealed to us rather than something has grown in him. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so it's character revelation rather than character development.
Whereas Hal's characterization, for a while, it's almost like they didn't know what to do with him, so they made him a daughter or salesman. So it's stuff like that, that his character has changed.
Okay.
And so,
Okay, so one reason I bring all of this up is this idea of multiple character development arcs, is that I feel like that actually is proof that comics are truer to life than a novel, because in life, humans have multiple character arcs. Like, you have a flaw that you find in yourself. You discover a habit that you've fallen into, or a habit that you let fall to the side. Something is revealed to you by the mirror that someone else puts in front of you, and you realize, hey, I want to change this about myself, and then you do. And then that's not the end of your story. We are hopelessly flawed, to quote Joe March from Little Women. And so there's always going to be something that we're working on, because the idea is that not that we are horrible, unredeemable people, because I don't think that you could ever call Hal Jordan unredeemable, even with everything that happened, when he...
Ron March tried.
Yes, but the fans would.
But Jeff Johns succeeded in
exactly.
That, so, yeah.
Well, sometimes it's also a matter of, okay, I'm going to paint you into a corner, and I want to see how you write yourself out of it. And Jeff Johns did. Good for him. Yeah. That just proves that he's a stellar writer. Anyway, but back to my original point, we are constantly in this cycle of improving ourselves. Any decent human, I guess I should say, but we're always trying to better ourselves for the betterment of ourselves, our families, and society. And I think that's a positive thing. It's not to say, oh, we're always going to be flawed. It's to say I always have a way to make myself better than I was yesterday. And I think that is reflected in the comic book characters. Would you agree?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, I would.
So, I just thought it was a cool concept of how you have these characters that have the multiple character arcs, and that's very true to life. So, with all that said, Secret Origins, is that what you said the book's called?
That was it.
Secret Origins, is it worth the read?
Yes. Entirety of Jeff Johns' run is worth the read.
Okay.
And Secret Origins, while again it didn't start his run, it does, it interworks what he's going to do later into the origin.
Okay.
as well as explaining certain things that didn't make sense, like Abin Sur. He crashed a spaceship. Like, he shouldn't need a spaceship, but Jeff Johns gave him a reason for having a spaceship.
Ooh, color me intrigued.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Basically, it was because of the whole, spoiler alert, but this is over 10
don't
years.
spoil.
But
We
this
want
is,
to read the book.
But this is over 10 years old, so you probably already know. The parallax entity was, the cause of their yellow weakness, and he would end up getting affected by it if he was to use his ring. So therefore, he couldn't use his ring, and he had a spaceship and such.
I want to close with the video, so I don't want to launch into this right now. Maybe fodder for another video. But didn't Hal Jordan become Parallax at one point?
Yes, he did. Yes,
right.
That's the introduction of Parallax. He was Parallax until Jeff Johns retconned it into being influenced by Parallax, but he went by the name.
Sort of like Jean Grey and the Phoenix?
Somewhat.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's enough of a parallel for a newbie like me to say, yes, that's what happened.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to close out this video of multiple character arcs and how comic book characters are even more to true life than you thought. So please don't forget to follow us on Facebook and find us on Twitter. And until then, have a great day.
Have a nice day.